Hello, this is Shelley Makes, and I am an agent at Heartland Realty in DeSoto, Missouri. This is my YouTube channel where I do various real estate topics, usually things that have been asked of me by clients, and I try to just give out some general information. Again, I'm in Missouri, so depending on where you're located at, some things maybe have different customs and legalities depending on where you live. So this is very general, just to maybe bring up some food for thought for you to talk to your agent or your local broker about when you're buying or selling a house. So again, this is kind of general information. My YouTube channel is called Shelley Makes It Happen, and I appreciate you tuning in today and hope that you find some of this information to be helpful. Of course, real estate is my passion, so I love talking about real estate. But one of the things that I wanted to kind of cover, because it was brought to my attention that in one of my previous videos, I talked a lot about selling a house as is and kind of the pros and cons of doing that. And so now I wanted to talk a little bit about the flip side of that, is if you're buying a house that is as is. And so this was a term that became pretty popular really whenever, like in 2008, around that time frame when a lot of foreclosures started hitting the market, which we hope never happens again quite like it did before. But a lot of, of course, banks and financial institutions were unloading homes and selling them as is. So that became kind of more of a popular thing that it seemed like was, you saw a little bit more. And we still see it today, obviously, and it doesn't have to be a foreclosure or a bank. I mean, a private seller can do the same thing. But this is kind of my take on what it means to you as a buyer if you're looking at a property that says as is, and some of the things that you should probably bring up and discuss with your agent. So a lot of people think if it says as is, they're kind of scared to go look at it because they think, I don't want to just buy a house, as is without, being able to do any inspections or appraisals or doing anything. That's not exactly what it means. I mean, it does mean that the seller is not going to fix anything, that he is selling it as is and he expects you to take that property just like it is. But it doesn't mean as a buyer that you don't also have the opportunity to do inspections just for information. So for example, if you went and looked at a property that was said as is, you already know going in he's not going to fix anything. So when you see a cracked window or whatever that the case may be, you think to yourself, is this, do I like this house well enough to have to fix that myself whenever I move in? You already know he's not going to do it. So any of the things that you see that are visible is really to your discretion, whether or not you think that it is priced right for those things. Normally speaking, an as-is home should be a reduced price point. Because basically the seller is saying, hey, I'm checked out, take it or leave it. And in many cases, I'm not going to say in all cases, these are people that maybe for one reason or another are elderly and maybe just can't do a lot of minor repairs. Maybe this is someone who inherited a house or somehow, lives out of state and this was their parents' house and they really just don't live here. So they're not going to have the means or the access to get things fixed or repaired, and they just want to sell it. They really just want it off their hands. So, what that should mean to you is this might be an opportunity for you to get kind of a deal. Maybe, but be careful. Don't assume that because it says as is, you're going to get a deal. You really need to do your homework and find out what other houses are pricing for in that area, and then figure out yourself, hey, is this house worth it to me to, am I going to buy a house at, $175,000 that's really worth $220 and all I have to do is a few minor repairs? That's probably not the case, to be honest, but that's the concept that we're kind of looking for here. So there's no harm in going to look at a house that says as is. You just need to know that the things that you see that are going to be repaired are going to be up to you whenever you live in the home. So, but that does not mean when you go to write the offer, and this is definitely something, you need to talk to your agent about. I can only tell you what happens in Missouri, but we have contracts that are called special sales contracts that are used for that purpose, for you to buy a home. It does not give you a special sales contract, at least in Missouri, doesn't give you all of the same protection that a residential sale contract would. So you don't have some of the same contingencies to be able to withdraw from the contract. So you need to, make sure you understand that, as in all cases and with any contract, you really need to understand the contract that you're signing. So a special sales contract itself doesn't give you the right to pull out of the contract due to inspections unless you attach a rider. There's what's called a special sale contract rider. And if you attach that to the contract, it can give you the right to do inspections for informational purposes, for the things that you can't see, which, could be, termites, or, maybe something structural, something that you didn't know whenever you did the walkthrough on the house. And you do have the right then to withdraw the contract if something comes up that you were unaware of, not something that was previously disclosed. I'm not talking about that, or that you knew ahead of time, but some new information, or maybe it was something you knew, but once you got the contract accepted, you got a bid on it, and you found that it was a bigger problem and it was going to cost more than you estimated. These are all things you need to know how these are going to play out when you buy an as-is house and you're doing a special sales contract. Like, what's protecting me in this contract from those types of situations, which is a discussion that you want to have with your agent. A special sales contract also doesn't have a stipulation for an appraisal, for the seller to have to come down to the appraisal amount. Now, of course, if you do a loan, the lender is going to require that you do an appraisal. But if you're buying a house in cash, there's nothing on that contract, on that special sales contract, that says that, if it doesn't appraise out, that you're no longer obligated unless the seller meets the appraisal price. So that's a discussion that you want to have too, or what are going to be your rights if this house does not appraise out. Because even if you're paying cash, for just a little side note, you still have the right to have the house appraised, obviously. If you're doing a loan, your lender's going to require it. You don't have choice. But if you're not doing a loan, you absolutely still have that right, but you need to attach the appraisal rider to the special sales contract in order to have that right, and that's really an important thing that you want to remember to do. If you're in an area where there's government, what we call occupancy permits issued from the city or the municipality that you're buying a house, that is on a normal residential sales contract, and I hate to use the word normal, but on a standard, let's say, normal residential sales contract, at least I can again talk from my own experiences, that's something that the seller does, is gets an occupancy permit from the municipality. That's not something in a special sales contract that the seller is required to do. And in many cases, it's because you got to think, maybe if there's a lot of repairs that need to be done, maybe the house wouldn't pass. So that's going to be on you to find out what the municipality requires for you to be able to live in the house, and allow some time and some money to get that occupancy permit after you close, before you may be able to actually occupy the home. That's going to be, again, on you, unless anything's negotiable. So unless you negotiate otherwise, you just need to know going in what your responsibilities, again, are going to be. And then also on the special sales contract, it won't have a stipulation, again, at least here in Missouri, for insurability, meaning that if you obviously are going to want home insurance, you don't want to, maybe buy a $200,000 house in cash, and after you leave the closing table, heaven forbid, it burns down or has some kind of disaster, and you're not insured. So you obviously are going to want to buy home insurance. Well, when you go to your agent to buy home insurance, if they send someone out to look at the house and they come back and say, hey, the deck has fallen off, or whatever the case may be, the roof is caving in, we're not going to give you home insurance until those things are fixed. That's a reason that you may want to withdraw the contract, and you want to make sure that you're protected in the contract when you make the offer to be able to do that if a situation like that comes up. So those are things that you want to make sure you understand. So buying an as-is home is a bit riskier, but there is some precautions that you can put in. Of course, keep in mind also, if you're in a multiple offer situation, all of those things that you put in, that you want it contingent on appraisal, inspection, whatever the case may be, can also hurt your offer if you're competing with other offers. So those are things you really have to weigh out. But there's no reason why you should be afraid to go look at an as-is house unless you're just saying to yourself, I don't want to do anything. I want that house to be turnkey, move-in ready. I don't want to do anything. And as his house probably indicates that there's some things that need to be done. There may be some exceptions to that, as with anything, but generally speaking, that's what it's going to mean, that they do not feel confident that the house doesn't need some TLC. So if that's not what you're looking for, it may be a house that you kind of want to bypass. So the moral of the story, or the point of the conversation today, is just that don't be afraid of it. Just know what you're getting into. Be educated and talk to your agent about what concerns you have going before you make the offer, and what kind of protections that you want to make sure are in that contract, because it is a different contract. It is a different situation. So you just want to make sure that you know what you're getting into. So thanks again for tuning in to Shelley Makes It Happen. I appreciate you tuning in today. If you have a chance, I'd appreciate it if you would like this video at the end of it. Like us on Facebook, and our website if you're interested in checking out our agency is heartlandhomesrealty.com. Thank you again.